The following program contains coarse language. Listener discretion is advised.
Our fight for social, economic, racial, and environmental justice.
I think the American people are going to have to say to NBC and ABC and CBS and CNN, you know what? Forget the political gossip. Talk about the real damn issues facing this country.
Everybody, welcome to the show. Around the nation, right here. YouTube.com/TYT Nation. Well, I am way too white. And that's saying something when I think I'm too white. So let me just adjust that so I don't break your eyes, because that is way too much white balance. Hey, it's live internet television, folks. So let me just fix that real quick. Let's see, and there we go. That's a little better. Wow, that was way too much white. Anyway, now it might be a little too dark, but you know what? It can't be perfect. Anyway, that was a weird way to start the show. But welcome. Got a great show for you guys today, despite the lighting issues. We're gonna have a little fun, and then we're gonna go into some serious stories, some disastrous stories, stuff about Trump, stuff about the media, etc., etc. A lot of different stuff today. So we're going to start out light. We're going to have fun for the first couple stories, and then it gets worse. Much worse. So that's great. See, I thought about it today, and thought about just calling the whole thing, like every time I do a Trump story, let's just call it the damage report. Because every day, man, it seems like Donald Trump is doing something that is even worse than the last day. Or maybe not so much Donald Trump, but the people behind Donald Trump, people like Steve Bannon. So, oh man. Again, we've got stories on that too, on what he's trying to do. But first, before I get into the stories, I want to thank the patrons, patreon.com/TYT Nation, helping keep the show going and growing. I appreciate your help. You guys are awesome, who help with the show. In fact, I want to give a new patron shout out today. That is Rusty Retz. So thank you, Rusty, for helping out the show. If you want to help with the show as well, any of you at home, patreon.com/TYT Nation. Help make a better nation. So anyway, with that, I'm going to go into the breakdown. Again, we're going to have some fun with Trump at the prayer breakfast. That's always interesting. Then we've got Skype questions for the White House. Interesting. Then we've got a story about the ACA. So Republicans are now thinking, maybe this repeal and replace idea is not such a good idea. Maybe we should actually fix the law. Interesting. So I've got that. That's a lot of information in there. And then we've got attempts to, attempts to try to stop white supremacy here in America, to try to prevent it. Right-wing extremism are actually being curbed in favor of something else. So the Trump administration is planning to stop programs that will help try to keep down white supremacist movements. So that's not good. That's scary stuff. Then we've got pollution. House Republicans removing rules and regulations. And then we've got a disaster story about deportation. What is the next Trump executive order on immigrants, not just illegal immigrants, but other immigrants as well, the legal kind. Scary stuff. And a lot of it has, of course, the fingerprints of Steve Bannon all over it. So, again, we're going to have a lot of disaster in this story. So it's, jeez. All right. So, again, let's start with some fun. Now, Donald Trump is having a little bit of a rivalry with his Celebrity Apprentice replacement and fellow Republican Arnold Schwarzenegger. Now, earlier today, they had a prayer breakfast, and during this prayer breakfast, obviously, a lot of politicians, they come and they do this religious thing. They talk about whatever religion. I mean, Obama did the prayer breakfast all the time. I'm not really into it. It's usually boring. But hey, look, Donald Trump is there, and he's going to say something rather interesting. Let's take a look.
Had tremendous success on The Apprentice, and when I ran for president, I had to leave the show. That's when I knew for sure I was doing it. And they hired a big movie star, Arnold Schwarzenegger, to take my place. And we know how that turned out. The ratings went right down the tubes. It's been a total disaster. And Mark will never, ever bet against Trump again. And I want to just pray for Arnold, if we can, for those ratings, okay?
Let's pray for ratings. Man-child. No, ratings, they were terrible. They were a disaster. Down the tubes, sad. Let us pray for Arnold. Jackass, you are the leader of the free world, man. You have way more important things to worry about than Celebrity Apprentice ratings. I'm just saying. And look, maybe it was a joke. But then again, I mean, look, Obama made a lot of jokes, okay? He'd go in, he'd joke, right-wingers would flip out, whatever, right? The thing about Donald Trump is he actually does take all this stuff seriously. Like, what sounds like a joke, actually he takes seriously. It's crazy. I mean, remember he's recently tweeted about the disastrous ratings on The Apprentice. Oh, I did better than Arnold. Arnold's not doing very well. Sad. Dude, you're the president of the United States. Why are you doing this? But anyway, you know why? It's because he has to brag. He can't stand to be a loser. He's got to point out that he's winning in everything. I'm such a winner. And he does it because he's got to rub it in. Your ratings were okay. Mine were better, though. I did so much better when I was at The Apprentice. Now I'm president now. Dude, come on. Dude. And you realize, too, that this is one of the reasons why Republicans love this guy. Why? It's because he's the alpha male. Now, he makes lesser conservatives, the beta males, if you will, give them their bananas, okay? He says, I'm the alpha male, you give me your banana. And they say, oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm going to give you my banana. Well, you know who's not giving Donald Trump his banana? It happens to be Arnold Schwarzenegger. Take a look.
Hey, Donald, I have a great idea. Why don't we switch jobs? You take over TV because you're such an expert in ratings, and I take over your job. And then people can finally sleep comfortably again.
Savage. We're having fun. We're having fun. So, I've got to do something to take away from some of the terribleness of the next story. So, anyway, let's go on. Let's talk about the Trump White House and the press corps, their relationship. All right. Now, it's pretty clear from past reporting that we've done that Donald Trump despises the White House press corps. Now, they hate answering questions from the press, so, any chance that they could do to call on people from maybe like Fox News and not call on people from CNN, like you remember Jim Acosta, right? Well, Jim Acosta said, hey, I got a question for you. Can I ask a question? No, you're fake news. You're fake news. I'm not going to answer any questions from you. We're going to go to the guy from Fox News. Well, that, of course, a little bit of a PR disaster, so the White House came up with a new way to bypass anybody from asking tough questions. Now, they did so by essentially setting up something called Skype Seats. Now, what is Skype Seats? Well, it's basically a way for the administration to set up conservative hosts to call in and ask a question through Skype so they don't actually have to pick people from the press corps. So, of course, handpicking sources to ask questions, well, there's nothing shady about that, right? Now, just to show you the caliber of questions that are being asked, I'm going to play you a video of Sean Spicer being asked a question by a conservative host named Lars Larson. Now, let's take a look at this video.
I want to go to my third Skype seat, Lars Larson of The Lars Larson Show.
Commander Spicer, it's a pleasure. Thanks for your service to America and thanks for the opportunity. I've got a broad question. The federal government is the biggest landlord in America. It owns 2/3 of 1 billion acres of America. I don't think the founders ever envisioned it that way. Does President Trump want to start returning the people's land to the people? And in the meantime, for a second question, since that's in fashion these days, can he tell the Forest Service to start logging our forests aggressively again to provide jobs for Americans, wealth for the Treasury, and not spend $3.5 billion a year fighting forest fires?
Wow. No, man, that's not propaganda at all. That is a completely 100% fair and balanced question. I mean, I don't see the problem with that. You know, Lars Larson was surely bringing the heat, man. He was really holding the administration to account with that question of, when are you going to return the land, the Americans' land to their people? And by people, he means wealthy logging corporations, because apparently Lars Larson is an enormous shill for the logging industry. This is amazing. Again, this is an example of the White House press corps. What's replacing the White House press corps? Jesus Christ. Look, you think they're going to bring somebody from MSNBC on to fill the Skype seats? Ha! You think they're going to bring on anybody from, for example, TYT? You're going to bring on Kyle Kalinske? They're going to bring on... they're certainly not going to bring on me, but you think they're going to bring on Cenk Uygur? No, you're mental if you think they're not going to just go to a very small, select, hand-picked source. You know, Lars Larson. What's next? Like Rush Limbaugh? Come on, man. Sean Hannity? Is that who they're going to pick next? This is amazing, man. And look, this is a way for the Trump administration essentially to sit there and put out propaganda instead of, I don't know, actually answering tough questions. This is their way of freezing out the press corps because they hate it when people actually ask tough questions to try to hold them accountable. And so as a result of this, there's no access. I mean, there's no chance to ask real questions. I mean, look, you just have Lars Larson saying, when are we gonna cut down more trees so we can avoid forest fires? I mean, my God, man. Only you can prevent forest fires by chopping down all the trees. Yeah, okay. This is mental. This is madness. I never thought I would see our country actually devolve into this. We've been close, but holy crap. Just the past week and a half. You've got to be kidding me. If anything, this should serve as a real wake-up call to the press. Get in gear, do your job, and actually start to do some real journalism, okay? Like, if Trump's sister wants to do propaganda with Sean Spicer, okay, let him. Don't cover it. Get out there, get stories, get information, and hold this administration's feet to the fire, okay? And look, if you had been doing that before, and I have to note this, on the real issues, talking about real stuff, real issues facing the American people, and not bullshit, and not horse race crap, well, then maybe we could have actually avoided Donald Trump. But right now, and I hate to go and relitigate that, so I'm not going to do that. But we are way, way past that entire thing, and we are still heading into even more dangerous territory. Journalists, all hands on deck, man. We've got to fight this, and we've got to fight this hard. Man. All right. Okay. Let's move on. Let's talk about some Obamacare news. Now that hold on. I can't talk for some reason today. Now that there are no more elections until 2018, some Republicans are starting to change their tune on repealing Obamacare. Now, this is according to a report in The Hill. Some key Republican lawmakers are shifting their goal on the Affordable Care Act from repealing and replacing the law to a more modest goal of repairing it. Now, that's pretty interesting, right? Because, I and a lot of other progressives have been saying, yes, let's fix the flaws inherent in a for-profit healthcare model. Okay, let's fix it. So I'm in favor of that. Don't get rid of it. Make it better because it's a decent foundation that you can build on. Okay, great. Now, look, we'll have to see which way they go, if they go at all. And I'm going to get to that later. Now, according to Chairman Greg Walden of the House Energy and Commerce Committee, he says, quote, "I'm trying to be accurate on this because there are some provisions in the law that probably will stay, or we may modify them, but we're going to fix things. We're going to repair things," he told reporters on Tuesday. There are things we can build on and repair. There are things we can completely repeal. Okay, well, as pointed out, one of the things that they desperately want to repeal are some of the taxes on the wealthiest Americans that are actually used to help regular people afford their insurance premiums. This money actually goes to pay for subsidies for people who, need them to pay for their insurance premiums. Now, these taxes, as I said, are on very, very wealthy people, and it turns out that Republican donors are those wealthy people, and they despise those taxes. Now, how much? You have about the top 400 wealthiest households in America that pay the majority of this tax. Now, if those taxes are repealed, these households, 400 households, will save an average of $7 million a year. Jesus Christ. Now, that's a lot of money. Now, some of you might think, oh, great. Yes. Yeah, get rid of the taxes on rich people. Okay, well, if you're receiving subsidies through the ACA, oops, that money's likely gone, or, well, it would likely come out of your pocket. Now, first, let's get to some more quotes about this because, hey, some of these are fun. Now, let's see. This is Lamar Alexander. So Lamar Alexander said, quote, "I think it is more accurate to say repair Obamacare because, for example, in the reconciliation procedure that we have in the Senate, we can't repeal all of Obamacare. Obamacare wasn't passed by reconciliation. It can't be repealed by reconciliation, so we can repair the individual market, which is a good place to start." Now, of course, again, we've got to see what kind of repair they're talking about, what they're planning. Now, hopefully, their version of repair is not like when you take your car to, for example, the shop to get it repaired, and it comes out with other more expensive problems. Oh, sorry, I took it in for an oil change, and now, I need a new water pump. Well, holy crap, how did that happen? I don't know. It just happened to have burst. Couldn't do anything about it. So that's the scenario that we're trying to avoid. Basically bringing it in, repairing it, by them, of course, repealing certain things, and breaking the entire law. So where's this coming from, right? This sudden desire to say, oh, right, we actually have to do something about this since now we actually got elected. Well, it turns out they didn't really think that they were going to get handed the reins of power. That is my honest assessment. I didn't think that they thought that they were going to win. Maybe the House, but not the presidency. And now they're like, holy crap, Trump actually won. We have the reins of power. What do we do? Well, we're going to start looting the place for one, but we actually do want to get reelected. So we might not want to completely destroy the ACA because it actually was our plan to begin with. So, and I've got proof of that. This disarray, this thing that's going on in the Republican Party, this discussion about what do they do about their own plan. And this is from a secret recording that came out last week that shows these different Republicans having a conversation on the ramifications of the Obamacare repeal. Now, the first part goes back to who pays for this law. See, some Republicans are suggesting that once they get rid of the taxes on the rich, well, they actually have to try to raise money from somewhere for the subsidies, right? Well, some Republicans are saying, I know, let's just tax the middle class. Let's put a new middle class tax so we can pay for parts of this healthcare law. Now, right now, the way that it works is that you have employer-sponsored plans through work that are tax exempt. They're tax free. Republicans, some of them want to change that so that they do tax those plans. Now, when presented with the idea, Louisiana Senator Bill Cassidy said, quote, "It sounds like we are going to be raising taxes on the middle class in order to pay for these new credits." Yeah, exactly. Now, that is something that they would not want you to hear. Because, no, we care about the middle class. We want to lower taxes. Well, when they say they want to lower taxes, they don't want to lower taxes on you. They want to lower taxes on their donors. So, and it turns out that when you get rid of taxes on the rich when it comes to healthcare, you end up having to raise that money somewhere in order to keep these programs working. And of course, it's going to come from the middle class. It's going to come from you guys. Now, yeah, I have another quote here. And this is Representative Tom McClintock from California. Now, he warned Republicans that if they come up with a crappy replacement plan, that, well, it's kind of on them and it's going to hurt them later on in the elections. He says, quote, "We better be prepared, or we better make sure that we're prepared to live with the market that we've created. That's going to be called Trump care. Republicans will own that lock, stock, and barrel, and will be judged in the election less than 2 years away." Now, again, it is pretty funny how they didn't think about this when they were all shouting death panels at the top of their lungs. They didn't think about it. And then the truth is, of course, we all know it was their health care plan to begin with. Okay, this is the right-wing free market healthcare plan. Didn't really have anywhere else to go that actually might work. So, I mean, they should already own this, but since President Obama said, hey, you know what, that plan, that's actually not a great, that's not a bad plan. I'm going to take that, and we're going to call it Obamacare. Uh-oh. They had nowhere else to go. Now, the final quote here is from Republican Tom MacArthur. Now, he said, "We're telling those people that we're not going to pull the rug out from under them, and if we do this too fast, we are, in fact, going to pull the rug out from under them." Now, again, that's not from, oh, I care about my constituents. It's, I really want to get reelected, and if I screw them over, no, they're not going to vote for me again. So, look, these quotes kind of explain why some of these Republicans are looking at repeal and replace and saying, ooh, guys, I don't know about that. Not so fast. Not so fast. Now, again, I got to point to a lot of it is politics. Since people have finally realized the ACA and Obamacare are actually one and the same. And they realize that, they're like, oh, shit. I actually like the ACA. You're telling me this is the same law? But you were telling me all the horrible things about Obamacare. What? I actually like my ACA. Oh, that's crazy. So don't take it away. Don't take my health care. I mean, you've got Trump supporters saying, hey, I voted for you, but I kind of need the ACA to survive. I didn't think you were going to actually try to get rid of it. No, I need this. Don't take it away. I thought it was just talk. Well, I got to ask those people, hey, did you think the other stuff that he said was actually talk? Like banning the Muslims, building a wall that we don't actually need? Or what about the enormous tax cuts for the rich? Do you think those were fake too? I don't know. Maybe you're in favor of some of that. Well, okay. But normally when a Republican said, I'm going to take something away from the working and middle class so that I can cut taxes for the rich, believe them. Believe them. Because they're being honest. Now, of course, there are Republicans that, not all Republicans think this way. Okay? There's still a lot of Republicans there that still want to repeal and replace because they don't care about you at all. In fact, you have Representative Raul Labrador from Idaho saying, quote, I'm hearing there are a lot of members that say they want Obamacare light. That's not what we promised the American people, or more importantly, our donors. So you also have House Ways and Means Committee Chairman Kevin Brady of Texas said he thinks that the goal of fully repealing Obamacare is still doable, which, no, it's actually not. You also have Senate Finance Committee Chairman Orrin Hatch saying we need to repeal Obamacare immediately and then provide a transition to a brand new system. So, of course, there is a lot of dissension in the ranks when it comes to what do we do with the ACA. Now, again, I got to point out they had 8 years to figure it out, and they still hadn't figured it out. Amazing. Now, as far as some of the statements on we can still repeal Obamacare, no, actually you can't. You see, if they try, the Democrats, they're going to filibuster. And earlier in the article, it did mention that reconciliation can't repeal all of it. It can only repeal parts of it. And look, some of the parts that they have are actually very popular. So what are they going to get rid of and actually still have it work? I mean, for example, some of the popular stuff in this law is keeping your kid in your insurance until you're 26. No lifetime limits on coverage or caps. No ban on pre-existing conditions. People like that stuff. What they do hate is the individual mandate. But of course, that mandate ends up paying for the other stuff that they actually like. And if you can't afford it, which a lot of people cannot, there are exemptions for hardship. And there's a lot of people that actually don't know that. And of course, the law, I know, it's not perfect. I mean, I've mentioned before that there are some plans that have deductibles so high that you can't even use your insurance. So you're essentially having to pay for something that you don't use or you don't need. That's ridiculous. And you have the issue of premiums continuing to rise. Subsidies, yes, will rise too to match that. But so while people on those plans might not pay more, the cost for insurance overall will continue to go up because there's few to no cost controls on health insurance. I'd like for them to actually fix those problems, although I think the Republicans aren't interested at all in doing so, so I think it's rather unlikely. Now, what I also think we need to do is to have a public option. I believe that we should have people choose to buy into Medicare if they want. Now, I think that actually save a lot of money. There are a lot of studies that say that it would save a lot of money because Medicare just happens to be far more efficient than for-profit healthcare. And it's because of the way that it's set up. There's no advertising fees, no profit margin, no shareholders they have to please. So there you go. It's just cheaper and more efficient because there's actually less bureaucracy and less of a focus on, there's no profit margin focus when it comes to Medicare. So again, that makes it cheaper, not only for the government, but it makes it cheaper for you. Now, of course, if you try to do something like that, health insurance companies are just screaming bloody murder because they simply could not compete with a government option because, again, it's far, far less efficient than Medicare. I mean, these companies, they don't use all your money that in premiums for profit. Some of that goes right into advertising fees, goes to the board, and it goes into the CEO's pocket. Not to your healthcare. Now, again, let's go to the final thing, actually. And that's what they're trying to figure out what to do with Medicaid. Now, you've got Senator John Hoeven, whose state accepted the Medicaid expansion, said he wants to keep Medicaid while providing more flexibility to the states to make changes to the rules of the program, which is, of course, a common Republican thing. So that makes me think of block grants, of course, which block grants end up hurting the program, but cutting off a lot of the poor people in the states. So, you want to keep it, but you want to change the rules so they can essentially do what they want with the money and end up cutting off a lot of people. Well, how magnanimous of you, Mr. Hoeven. But still, there are some Republicans that are at least trying to have a conversation about this. I mean, you have Senator Ron Johnson out there that says that he wants to work with Democrats to fix Obamacare. He said, quote, "It is way more complex than simply repeal and replace. That's a fun little buzzword, but it's not just, it's just not accurate." Now, again, I have to say that your party ran on repeal and replace for 8 years. You essentially lied to the American people every time you said that little buzzword. You're actually telling people, this is the policy that I want to do. Oh, looks like, nope, I was lying. Well, great. Thanks. And now you want to call it just a buzzword and then actually offer to fix the law. Where were you for the last 8 years? When Democrats were more than willing to actually work with you guys, and that's what one of the fatal flaws of the Democrats is that they're too willing to reach out to the other side to try to fix this law. Where were you guys? Where were you? And speaking of the Democrats, I'm going to throw some more shade on the Democrats. And you have people like Hillary Clinton and Nancy Pelosi out there who are not helping the ACA by saying, no, it's absolutely perfect the way it is. No, it is not. It actually can be changed. It can be changed for the better. It can be improved. It can be built upon so it actually does work for all of the American people. And you could do that if you actually want to. You can go out there and say, no, it's completely perfect. We don't have to do anything. A lot of people will look at that, right and left, and go, are you out of your fucking mind? Of course there's ways that we can fix this. Of course. Let's actually try to do so. But, and look, I want to go out there and fix it. Because I do believe that people have a right to health care. I do believe it's part of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. I think that if you don't, if you can't have a good life or pursue happiness, then, well, look, you can't have that if you don't have a way to keep yourself healthy and productive. You can't be happy. You can't have life if you don't have some sort of health care. If you can't go to a doctor, if you can't get treated, if you can't get preventative care, you can't pursue happiness, can you? No. So yes, let's fix the ACA. Let's hear out Republican ideas, sure, and implement policy based on merits. Does it work? Does it not work? If it's good policy, great, we'll work it out. If it's not good policy, then I'm going to call it out. I'm going to examine it. I'm going to look at it. I'm going to see those proposals as I've been doing before, like with health savings accounts and tax credits. And we're going to look at the impact on the poorest, most vulnerable people in America. And we're going to see whether or not it works for people. That's what I'm going to do. And I expect all other media outlets, if they have any shred of journalistic integrity and a willingness to do their job, to do the same. Because this is important stuff. This is policy. And we need to focus on working on policy that works for everybody and not just a few. Okay. I think this is going to be a really long show. Really long. Okay. Because I got plenty more. All right. The Trump administration is now changing a program that tracks violent white supremacy in favor of only tracking violent Islamic extremism. Now, the U.S. government under President Obama had a program that was designed to counter all different violent ideologies. However, Donald Trump does not believe that other ideologies are as violent as or is as important to track as extreme Islam. So now they will focus only on Muslim extremists. Now, this is according to 5 different people who were briefed on the matter that talked to Reuters. Now, this program is called Countering Violent Extremism, or CVE, and it would be changed reportedly to Countering Islamic Extremism, or Countering Radical Islamic Extremism. They got to put the radical in there, according to the sources, and would no longer target groups such as white supremacists who have carried out bombings and shootings in the United States. Now, Reuters explains that such a change would reflect Trump's election campaign rhetoric and criticism of former President Barack Obama for being, quote, weak in the fight against the Islamic State, and for refusing to use the phrase radical Islam in describing it. You got to call it out by name. You got to call it out by name. And, oh, look, talking about weak on terrorism, right? Obama's weak on terrorism, right? So weak on terror. He only killed Osama bin Laden and a lot of the other Al-Qaeda guys. In fact, we've been bombing too much. We've been bombing Yemen, Somalia, Libya, Iraq, parts of Africa. I mean, we've been bombing a lot of people, these countries, for a very, very long time. In fact, we have bombed so much that at one point, we ran out of bombs. Seriously. There were a lot of reports, actually. And for just to give you an example, in a period of just over a year, the Air Force launched over 20,000 missiles and bombs at ISIS targets. This was under President Obama. This was 2015. Now, of course, what has that done? Well, I mean, it made a lot of profit for the defense contractors, but did it stop terrorism? Well, I don't think so. In fact, there seems to be a lot of terrorism. So I guess, look, maybe Donald Trump's right. Maybe Obama was weak on terrorism because it turns out that bombing the shit out of them is the weaker position. Because it doesn't solve the problem of radical Islamic terrorism. Just saying. All right. Now, back to the CVE. All right. According to the article, the CVE program aims to deter groups or potential lone attackers through community partnerships and educational programs or counter-messaging campaigns in cooperation with companies such as Google and Facebook. Now, there are some proponents of the program that fear that the rebranding this could make it more difficult for the government to work with Muslims already hesitant to trust the new Trump administration, particularly after Trump issued an executive order banning Muslims. Now, look, I could see how banning Muslims from certain countries and then adding a religious test to entry, i.e., oh, we're going to only let in the Christians, because if you look at the ban, it actually says, yes, we'll let in Christians, but not the Muslims for a certain amount of time. Now, of course, I could see how people might get a little angry, a little upset, and think that they're actually being targeted by the United States. And that in turn might help ISIS because, look, this illustrates to some of the Muslims out there that, oh, America does really hate us all. Well, maybe you guys might be right about it. And of course, look, all Muslims are not the enemy. ISIS doesn't represent all Muslims. ISIS is our enemy. But ISIS doesn't represent all Muslims, just like the KKK and the white supremacists do not represent all white people. So, and look, I do admit that it is kind of unfair to compare the KKK to ISIS. Let's be honest, simply because the Klan is heinous and has conducted killings and lynchings in the past, ISIS simply right now seems to have a bigger body count. I'm just saying. Now, they're both heinous groups, they're both awful groups, but you do have to keep it real. One actually is worse than another, and I don't want to sit here and equate false equivalence. Just saying. It's kind of like having terminal cancer versus being burned alive. Just saying. Now, the article goes on to explain that Republicans in Congress have long been going after the program because they think it's too PC. It's too PC. Actually, no, it's not too PC. It's actually factually correct. Radical Islam has killed fewer people in America compared to radical right-wing terrorism. So doing this catch-all term actually makes more sense because there are other forms of terrorism other than just Islamic terrorism, and we should target all different forms. We should look at all different groups and say, well, okay, well, if you're planning to do a terrorist action in America, well, we need to stop you. It doesn't matter if you're Islam, it doesn't matter if you're a right-wing terrorist, it doesn't matter if you're a left-wing terrorist, which I really haven't heard of any left-wing terrorists, but okay, whatever. Look into it anyway. Might as well. But apparently, as I said, that it will no longer be the focus. Another source familiar with the matter was told last week by a DHS official that a name change would take place. Three other sources speaking on condition of anonymity said such plans had been discussed but were unable to attest whether or not they had been finalized. Now, to show you what exactly the program did, is that it went to fund organizations dedicated to not only combating the Islamic State's recruitment in the United States, but it also went to a program called Life After Hate, which essentially rehabilitates former neo-Nazis and other domestic extremists. So, look, this program already went after Islamic extremism. Why the renewed focus? See, this is a problem. We're putting even more emphasis on the Muslims. And by doing so, we're ignoring homegrown terrorism. We're ignoring homegrown threats. People like the Oklahoma City bomber, the people that ambushed and murdered policemen outside of Las Vegas, or people like the Charleston shooter, or even the Planned Parenthood shooter. That is right-wing domestic terrorism, and that actually does need to be focused on as well. And we haven't been tough enough on that, and we should be. Because, look, over the past 8 years, there's no surprise that right-wing domestic terror groups have increased in number in the United States. And what did Obama do during that time when these groups grew out of control? He actually cut down the number of people investigating right-wing terror after conservatives got mad. After Fox News and Rush Limbaugh went after him for it. How dare you call these right-wingers terrorists? Well, not all right-wingers are terrorists. That's obvious. But there are extreme right-wingers that do terrorist actions. And I pointed off a bunch of different ones. That doesn't mean that all right-wingers are terrorists and all Republicans or all conservatives are terrible people, that they're terrorists. That's ridiculous. That's almost as ridiculous as saying all Muslims are terrorists. And look at this special snowflake mentality going on here. I mean, whatever happened about calling it the way it is? No, you got to call it by its name. Terrorism. Terrorism. You got to call it by its name. Islamic terrorism. But when it comes to a white right-winger that does a terrorist action, they're either called lone wolves or they're mentally unstable instead of being anti-government. Because they would end up having to indict some of their own base that think the same things. So, again, talk about being politically correct, talking about being snowflakes. And I'm pretty sure there are people watching that right now are triggered. Sad. It's pure hypocrisy, though. And now with the new focus of this program, we're going to continue to ignore the growing threat of homegrown right-wing extremism. And that is not going to lead to good things. That's going to lead to bad things. Buckle up. Bad things are coming. All right. So hold on. I'm going to take a really quick break here. I know I don't normally do that, but I just got to do something real quick. And we'll be right back. All right, we're back. Sorry about that. I had some sound issues here. I forgot to unmute. All right. So let's get back to the show here. Let's do the next story. Let's talk about pollution. All right. Now, Republicans yesterday voted to repeal a rule that would prevent coal companies from polluting rivers thanks to freedom. Now, House Republicans had recently approved the measure with a vote 228 to 194. Now, 9 Republicans voted against the repeal, while 4 Democrats supported it. So now I can guarantee that one of the people who voted for this was Joe Manchin. Why doesn't Joe Manchin just switch to being a Republican already? He's already right-wing enough. Now, according to the Interior Department, back in December, to explain what this rule does, is that it would protect 6,000 miles of streams and 52,000 acres of forests, preventing coal mining debris from being dumped into nearby water. Now, the rule maintains a long-established 100-foot buffer zone that blocks coal mining near any streams. Now, of course, they don't like this at all. Republicans don't. So, of course, they wanted to get rid of this. Now, lawmakers also voted to get rid of a rule requiring companies to disclose payments made to foreign governments related to mining and drilling. So, with this one, let's get rid of transparency. Hey, you want to give money to a foreign power? Have at it, man. There are no cops left in the beat in Congress. We have turned it all over to the robbers, and they are going to rob us blind. Now, of course, let me give you the Republican bullshit excuses for repealing these bills. According to Representative Bill Johnson from Ohio, he said, quote, "Make no mistake about it, this Obama administration rule is not designed to protect streams. Instead, it was an effort to regulate the coal mining industry right out of business." That's great. He also says the stream protection rule is really just a thinly veiled attempt to wipe out coal mining jobs, according to Paul Ryan. Now, I have to note, and I've talked about this before, it is not regulations that have killed the coal industry. It's actually competition from cheap natural gas. I'm sorry, but it's the invisible hand of the free market that has slapped the coal industry in the face. It doesn't have anything to do with excessive regulation. It's just cheaper to do natural gas. And look, you also have wind power that's cheaper to produce than coal. And it also happens to be much cleaner. And of course, getting at it doesn't also give you black lung. So there's the benefits of wind compared to coal. But of course, Republicans in Congress, they don't really care. All they want to do is do anything that they can to save their companies a buck, their donors. As for jobs, Interior officials said the rule would cause only modest job losses in coal country and could even create jobs as companies hire construction crews to haul and store debris. Now, the transparency rule was put into place in order to promote transparency so citizens of some of the world's most impoverished countries can hold their own governments accountable for the wealth generated through mining and drilling. So it helps people in places, you know, that are doing a lot of natural gas or whatever oil exploration. Hey, so they can actually share that with the citizens. But these oil companies like, no. Republicans, no. We don't want that transparency. We don't care. We don't want you to share it with the citizens. That's socialism. We don't like that. No, these impoverished countries, stay impoverished. We don't care. We're going to hide this. We're going to stop transparency. And besides, got to kill them regulation, man, because they are a burden on business. How dare you try to make us more transparent? Can't have it. Can't have it. And the other thing about this that's more disturbing is they didn't even put it to a normal vote. Republicans voted to repeal the Obama-era rules using something called the Congressional Review Act. Now, what this does is the law hastens the process for bringing legislation to the floor and removes the 60-vote threshold in the Senate, basically letting it pass by a simple majority. So, Democrats, you can't filibuster this. You can't stop this. No, we're going to use these special rules and usurp democracy. Ha ha. So again, what they're doing, and we've seen this before, is that they're using obscure rules to basically ram through legislation that would make it easier to pollute and hide corruption. This is brazen. This is them laughing in your face. And I haven't even mentioned, probably the worst part of this law is that it prevents the executive branch from, like, once they get rid of these regulations, right? The executive branch can't go through and impose similar regulations in the future. Then it actually has to go through Congress. So not only are we screwed, but we will be in the future as long as Republicans have a majority. Great. We can't put these regulations back. And using the review, and this is according to Jennifer Collins, who's a clean water advocate for the environmental group Earth Justice. She said using the Review Act to overturn a federal regulation is like burning your house down because you don't like the paint color. She also calls the Review Act an extreme and blunt instrument that essentially prevents federal rulemakers from addressing a topic once Congress has acted. You also have Senior Democrat Rahul Grohalva, who said repealing the stream protection rule would, quote, sicken and kill the very people Donald Trump falsely promised to help. And that would be coal miners in West Virginia and other coal states. Now, of course, that hasn't stopped Republicans before. I mean, they did after all vote to remove the same coal miners' health care. Don't worry, we're going to protect you. Oh, your health care? Don't need it. Gone. They don't care about you, man. They don't care about the miners. All they care about is the industry, because the industry is who gives them campaign bribes. We give you the money, and you do what we tell you to, and what we tell you is to not protect the workers and to not protect the environment because that costs us money. That's what happens here. Now, you also had Representative John Yarmouth of Kentucky. Now, what he did during this vote is that he brought a bottle of water that came from a constituent's well near a surface coal mine. Now, I love this, and I wish I had the video for it. But he's like, any of you guys want a drink? I mean, this is perfectly safe water. I mean, if you remove this regulation, a lot of water is going to end up like this. But you say it's perfectly safe, right? Perfectly safe. So go ahead and take a drink. Go ahead. Oh, you don't want any. Oh, maybe because you know that it's toxic and that it will kill people. Well, guess what? That's in your constituents' water. And that's what it's going to end up being in more constituents' water when you remove regulations. See, this is why we have regulations, so they can't actually poison your water. And that's what they don't understand. That's what they don't understand. And it's because, again, they don't care about you. It is not about protecting coal miners. It's about protecting coal company profits. Get it through your head, guys. They don't care about you if you're out there in coal country. They don't give a shit. They lie to you. They want to take your health care, and they want to allow the coal companies to poison your water. We're trying to protect you. We're trying to not have your water get corrupted. I know. You're losing jobs. You want somebody to blame. Blame natural gas. It's not overregulation, and that is a lie that is being peddled by corporate media. We're 2 weeks into this new administration. Almost. And already, they have done away and are trying to do away with any progress. They are ramming things through left and right and destroying anything that was even positive for the environment. There's going to be so much damage left to clean up when these guys are taking a hatchet to everything that doesn't help their corporate donors. It's going to be a long 4 years and even longer time afterwards trying to fix this destruction that we're going to see over this administration. Jeez. All right. I got one more story for you guys. Okay. Now, recently, President Trump signed an executive order banning Muslims from 7 different Muslim-majority countries. That, of course, is making huge headlines, and people actually realize that, oh my God, he actually is going after the Muslims. Now, surprisingly, there was a recent poll out that found that 49% of the American people actually agreed with this order. That's insanity. Already. Oh yeah, banning the Muslims? Great. I'm in favor of that. But not banning the ones who actually came from countries that did attack us, like Saudi Arabia. I mean, 15 out of the 19 9/11 hijackers from Saudi Arabia. Are they on the list? No, because Donald Trump has business dealings there. Not only that, but we get cheap oil from there. Hillary Clinton had given them weapons while she was at the State Department during the Obama administration. Look, Saudi Arabia. If anybody should be banned, it's Saudi Arabia. But no, we're not going to do that because we have this long-standing, they're our biggest ally in the region, even though they don't respect human rights or, women's rights or LGBT rights. They kill atheists. I mean, seriously. Saudi Arabia, they're not on the list. But anyway, on to some of the other things that he was going to do. Now, build a $25 billion wall to try and keep people from illegally entering the United States. Which, look, may sound like a good idea to some people until you remember that walls can't stop planes. So, oops. Now, other plans include rounding up the 11 million undocumented immigrants living in the United States. And, of course, this is reflected in this pick for ICE, the Immigration and Customs Enforcement Bureau. Now, the man he chose to head that department is a deportation hardliner. So this is a guy, he's like, yeah, if you want to deport people, I'm the man. I can lead this. So, but look, it's not just the Muslims. It's not just the undocumented immigrants that Donald Trump's coming after. No. He's now going to go after the legal immigrants. Yes, Donald Trump is actually looking to deport legal immigrants from the United States. Certain ones, anyway. Come on, right? What are you talking about, you say? This can't be real. No. Hear me out. Now, let me explain what the current law is and then go into what this proposed order would be. Now, right now, legal immigrants do have access to some public benefits, right? And this has to do with welfare benefits. Now, the federal government can deny under current law an individual entry into the United States or reject an immigrant's request for permanent residence if there is enough evidence that the individual is likely to become a primary dependent on government benefits for their own subsistence. So, hey, if you're poor, if you're on welfare, or if you need welfare, and you're an immigrant, sorry, we don't want you because you're a leech. That's essentially what they're saying. And this is current law. Now, when making that determination, the government can hold immigrants' use of cash-based welfare programs like temporary assistance for needy families, otherwise known as what replaced a welfare program. You can hold those programs against them. However, they can't use their use of benefits like food stamps or Medicaid against legal immigrants. That is the law as it currently stands. However, the Trump administration's draft order would change that by instructing the Department of Homeland Security to bar immigrants from the United States if they are likely to receive any means-tested benefits at all. So, what was formerly known as welfare, food stamps, Medicaid, any of that. Oh, you get a welfare program? Oh, okay. Well, let's bar you from immigrating to the United States then. So, poor people, poor immigrants, people who left everything and had nothing to begin with. Maybe from a war, or maybe from the United States bombing the shit out of your country. Sorry, can't come in. No entry. Sad day for you. Now, some of you might agree with that. Oh, those people will just come over here and they'll suck off the system anyway. I mean, they're not real Americans, so why should they get any sort of benefits? We don't want them. Okay, well, look, hey, I don't agree with you. And I will add that you sound like a very conservative, very compassionate Christian. Wonderful. Now, you could also ask the question of, hey, well, okay, so how are they coming for the legal immigrants, the people who are already here? Well, the order would also subject visa holders who are already in the United States to deportation if they used public benefits above a certain threshold. And if that's not bad enough, the order would require the friend or family member who sponsored the deported immigrant to reimburse the federal government for the cost of the benefits he or she used. Now, again, if you're, certain people might be looking at this and going, great, look, I don't want to waste my money deporting them anyway. I'd rather pay to bomb them and to give multinational corporations giant tax cuts. It's my money, right? All right, well, hey, I guess. But for those of us who consider, immigrants actual fellow human beings, well, it gets worse. The order would also bar undocumented immigrants from accessing the child tax credit, even when their children are United States citizens. So this is birthright citizenship. Well, you don't get that tax credit. Further, the order would direct the government to publish recurring reports on how much money it spends on benefits for immigrants and how those funds could have been reinvested in America's inner cities. Now that is probably the most disgusting part of this bill, of this order. Let's pit one group of disadvantaged people against another group of disadvantaged people. Immigrants versus the working poor in the inner city. Disgusting. And look, it's the oldest trick in the book, divide and conquer. And when you do that, you make people fight each other. They forget the real issues. The fact that the rich are getting richer off of all of us. No, instead, they want one lower class to resent people who are further down the ladder than they are. Oh, look at all that money that could have gone to helping us. Instead, it went to welfare benefits for immigrants. Jeez. It's grotesque, man. Sickening to think that they're playing the politics of divisions in such a terrible, brazen way. There's more. Another executive order obtained by the Post also points out this tactic. The second order is called, and love this Orwellian name, Executive Order on Protecting American Jobs and Workers by Strengthening the Integrity of Foreign Worker Visa Programs. And what it would do is it would call for eliminating the jobs magnet, that is driving illegal immigration to the United States. Now, the order would rescind any work visa provisions for foreign nationals found not to be in the national interest or in violation of U.S. immigration laws. Now, it weighs how to make America's immigration program more, quote, merit-based, calls for site visits at companies that employ foreign workers, and tasks the Department of Homeland Security with producing a report twice a year on the total number of foreign-born people, not just non-immigrant visa holders, who are authorized to work in the United States. So let's break that down. So basically what it says is that if you have foreign-born workers that are American citizens, they are naturalized, that they would end up still being counted among those who are ostensibly considered as taking jobs from quote-unquote real Americans. So you were born in another country, and you went through the legal process of immigrating here, and you get a job, this order goes through, you're going to be put on a list. A list. And people can view that, and you're going to be known as a guy who took a job that could have went to a natural-born American. Jesus, man. Isn't that amazing? Now, I've got a personal story to go along with this. Now, I have an in-law. My grandfather on my wife's side is an immigrant from the Netherlands, from Holland. Now, this guy, he's deeply conservative. This is the irony of ironies, right? He's deeply conservative. He watches Fox News and likely voted for Donald Trump. And ironically, he's worked for the city. And now he draws Social Security. He's retired. Now, under this, if he were still working, this order goes through, he would not be considered a real American. In fact, he would be considered an immigrant that's stealing an American's job. His name would be in one of these reports. Because he took a real American's job. just because he was born in another country, immigrated here legally, and he built a life for himself. This is a legal immigrant. Okay? This is disgusting. This is chilling. I mean, what are we doing? We're blaming immigrants for taking all the jobs? That's not true. And also, what's lost in this conversation is the fact that immigrants come over here and sometimes they build great jobs. They build huge companies. They build businesses and create jobs for Americans. And one of the famous examples of this is somebody that literally has the word jobs in their name. That is Steve Jobs. His father was an immigrant. He came from Syria. Steve went on to create Apple and employ thousands of people. You want to find the cause of stagnating wages? It's not the immigrants. Look at the top. It is the ones who are at the top 0.1%, that are sucking up all the wealth. But what they want you to do is to blame the next most powerless people, and that is people who have come over here with absolutely nothing. And you know what? This has Steve Bannon's fingerprints all over it. This is the kind of thing that could come from his demented mind. No, Steve. Don't call Steve a white nationalist. He's a Navy hero. What are you talking about? No. This is what Steve Bannon represents. America for native-born white people and not for anyone else. That is what he represents. This is how fascism begins. Right here. Don't say we didn't warn you. That's it, man. That's all the stories I've got for you guys today. Thanks for going around the nation with me. I'll be back tomorrow. We'll have a Friday show. That's a first. So it'll be like casual Friday. So we're gonna figure out how that whole thing goes when we go tomorrow. Maybe open up the lines. Maybe take a couple of callers. That'll be interesting. So might do that. We'll have some stories. We'll have a good time. Come and watch the show 3 p.m. Eastern, 3 to 4 tomorrow, right here, TYT Nation. If you haven't already, please please subscribe, and share the clips. And sharing is caring, right? And anyway, I want to thank all of you at home. I want to thank the patrons. I want to thank everybody. Love you guys. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, TYT Nation.